Hello, investing friend of financial freedom, and welcome into Investors Club. Got a great show for you.
Wait, what? Why'd you delete the other streams?
This is the first episode. I deleted the other streams because it got us going to get all the technical stuff worked out. We're already got it so much worked out just with the technical stuff. Today we're looking at we did our first biotech in a long time, and it exploded yesterday, more than doubled. So we had the Cassava Sciences disappointment.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
And it was too interesting not to pass on to you. If I didn't share it with you, I was afraid we were going to miss something special. And if you didn't get it, I'm afraid you just missed the beginning of something special. This stock has all the characteristics of a big biotech opportunity. A trial average, and not many of those around, is there? The enormous unmet need this company is going after is antimicrobial resistance. And then on top of that, we have a president with a stock, Trump Media, or whatever it's called. That stock was victim of that phantom share stuff. And the CEO publicly said how awful it was. So we could be getting some relief over there as well.
Phantom shares, baby. Had to delete all my videos because of the bad audio. What about the company, Joe?
The stock is Accurex, ACXP.
Oh, he scrubbed all his videos. He scrubbed all of his videos. No more cassava. Is this a new account? Yes, it's a new account. Oh my God, he's starting over. Yeah, I don't know what he wants to do, but he should probably find a job. I think the rumor is he moved to Thailand to avoid prosecution for cassava. That's the rumor. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, honestly, it could be like... It could be a good pick. I have no idea. I sold Circle at like 100, dude. Yeah, I didn't hold it for this big rally. And the big rally came 5 or 6 days after the IPO, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I'm not too bearish on Google, but a little bit. I mean, I honestly think they're going to be fine, but it does kind of look like the next Yahoo. YouTube's kind of going to go nowhere, right? So YouTube's sticking around, and that's a lot of the traffic, but it's not a lot of the revenue, interestingly. Well, one of the risks of a crowded short is if you have everybody in the same short and everybody thinks it's going to go to zero, you know, it can be there's low liquidity. A lot of people trying to get out at once. Circle Options just listed. I think the volatility is quite high. So I don't know. Oh, GMX hostile takeover from QXO, Jacob's company. Oscar, we mentioned Circle, we mentioned 𝗏𝗏𝗘 Quantum up 15%. That's a new quantum alpha. What's going on with Accenture? Reported earnings. Guess they're not an AI play after all. Coinbase up 3%. So another day in Bubble Town. Other big news, Meta tried to acquire SSI, the AI company. $32 billion just started. This company just started. So I guess, are they gonna have a... Oh, wow. They put the gene and cell therapy chief on administrative leave. Nicole. Oh, and people are concerned that she's getting fired. I don't think Levitas is getting pulled. Yeah, Capper's gone to zero. Immune's gone to zero. No, I don't have really any opinion on SIM. Yeah, the clinical trial results for Immune are coming in the next 6 business days, most likely at least. 12 amino acid protein fold. Does 12 amino acids even fold? Being a quantum CEO means taking your stock to zero. 1 alpha fold. We predicted 1 alpha fold. What are you mad about, Bromhausen? Which stock do you own that's going to zero? Let me guess. Is it Quantum? INMB? Capricorn? Which one is it? Which one are you mad about? AVXL? Could be AVXL. Or are you a Cassava bag holder? Did you lose all your money in that one? AMC? No, some of the Quantum baggies are still mad at me because they think their stock would be up 10x without it. Tips on getting better at trading. Tip number 1, make sure you make the smallest positions you can. Most people use way too much leverage, way too much cash. Always keep cash. Tip number 2, notice the habits you have. If you're always in stuff early, leave a little room to grow your position. If you're always late, try to get there faster. Keep a trading journal or something like that. Best thing you can do is work with somebody. If you have a person you're working with closely, they can kind of talk you through some of these things. Someone you trust, someone who's also good at trading. You have complementary strengths. I think Snowball sets you up and is a really good appetite, gets your appetite going for investing. Yeah, just being honest with yourself. I think the best book about this is Trading to Win by 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏. I mean, if you're looking for somebody who will work with you and trade with you, I mean, there's a couple of people who could do that. I mean, there's people in Godel. But basically, you got to either commit to being a professional investor or not. If you're not committed to being a professional investor and working with someone daily about, your transactions, I don't know what to tell you. Charlie Munger was the best thing that ever happened to Warren Buffett. Not because Munger was better than Buffett. But Munger was there to be a stable counterpart to Buffett. Buffett, could get excited, want to do trades and transactions, and he listened to Munger. Because Munger could keep his cool no matter what. Buffett was the real genius, but Munger could really keep his cool, and he could tell the psychology of what Buffett was getting into. So, having him next to him for every transaction, was Munger's ability to tell him not to do something really kept Berkshire out of trouble. And staying out of trouble is the first thing you got to do when you're an investor. Doesn't matter if you're a trader or an investor, or both. Private equity, none of that matters. If you can avoid bad transactions that are like permanently bad, kind of that's what I really focus on. I try not to get into situations where forget the market spirits for a second, but the permanent value of the company is divorced from what I paid for it or what I speculated on it. For example, why quantum doesn't worry me is because I have a very strong feeling that the permanent value of these companies is very low. So they can mark it up, they can mark it down. It doesn't make a difference to me because I feel really confident in that. If that changed, then I'd get nervous. If QUBT all of a sudden went from 35,000 in revenue to 3 million in revenue, I would say, wait a second, maybe I was wrong. If IonQ CEO started buying stock instead of selling it, I would get nervous. But the permanent value changes are what upset me. So for Sarepta, there's no doubt that the value of Elevidys has permanently changed. It's less. And I don't like that because, I bought a stock thinking it was worth X, and now it's worth X 0.95x or 0.9x, and that's really frustrating because it's like I lost money in essence. The mark to market, of course, shows what it shows. I think what's more important when you invest in this style is what is the true value of the company that you believe in. Now, if you're at a hedge fund or mutual fund, or you have a wife, none of this stuff matters because people care about the P&L today. And you're playing a different game. Yeah, I agree that it was like...
So we have two...
I agree that it was really weird because he said that he would need a drink to tell you the real story.
That at the moment...
Interesting, like right here, he's got IonQ on his... Right on the PowerPoint. So I think he has this like long-term agreement with them. Again, if I were 𝗓𝗏𝗡, I probably would I wouldn't do this, but I'm sure 𝗓𝗏𝗡 and his general counsel sent him a letter saying, your public statements are not congruent with, your role at IonQ. Please cease and desist from saying bad things about us. So despite that, he's still saying bad things. I mean, that's really incredible. Anyway, he's not really saying bad things about IonQ, by the way. He's just sort of being realistic about quantum computing. So remember, I also love quantum computing. I'm not like, I spend a lot of my time writing code, playing with big machines. Like, I'm not, somebody that is averse to new types of computing. I look and read about this stuff all day. But, it's just as an investor and as a developer, I have to be realistic. That's it. My job's to be realistic and make money. The website's definitely new. The question is the role new? So in any event, I'm not sure IBM is going to do that great. Mostly, my biggest position now is I'm short INMB. And so the probably other things is interesting because I think that while it's undoubtedly true that once we have QCs that we can play with, there'll be more algorithms. The last algorithm of interest in quantum is now 30 years old. So it's not for lack of looking. So keep that in mind.
I would say the single piece of hype you'll find in a plot like this is the timing. So when we transition from...
Yeah, on Jensen, I mean, I think he's got the same opinion as me, which is that QPUs would not be ever present. I mean, very few people will need QPUs unless you really need to factor really big numbers for some reason. You're decrypting or hacking something. I don't know why you would need a QPU. You want to Grover speed up on something, maybe, if you're a highly technical person, but I don't think the average person will ever have a QPU. Yeah, I'm familiar with the NVIDIA quantum team. I mean, I think that there's not... The NVIDIA quantum team is mostly focused on the very cool part of computing. Again, if you're into computing, and I mean really into it, not like you program Python or something, but like you really like computing. You've been thinking about quantum for the last 25 years. Every single person has. But you're not thinking about it because you're rushing to use it. You're thinking about it because of its theoretical implications. And I think that's the major difference here that gets disconnected. Every person who studied computing, I'm talking about people who study complexity, people who study compiler theory, type theory, those kinds of things. Anybody who studies academic computer science is interested in quantum because it says a lot of things in theory. For example, I mean, the biggest thing it asks is, why does this super hard problem that's not NP complete, but still in this weird sort of space between P and NP, factoring, why is this hard on classical but easy on quantum? And that's one of the biggest questions in computing. And one of the things that also kind of makes you wonder, again, and these are all theoretical things, is, what other problems look like that? Does discrete log problem look like that? And eventually we all know that if you have a solution to one NP complete problem, you have a solution to all of them. One problem sort of occurs when you say, well, factoring, that's not NP complete. And as you sort of just take problems out of NP complete and put them in their own bucket. And then to me, that's a cop-out that reminds me of McCarthy's the father of AI, the real father of AI, McCarthy's opinion on AI, which is AI is defined as whatever computers can't do well right now. And it's sort of the same thing here, where, okay, maybe quantum can grab some problems and toss them into the other side. Right now, there are not too many. In fact, there really aren't any, but other than Shor's. But look, we're never going to stop thinking about this. I mean, anybody who's interested in space, time, complexity, things like that, it's just too important, too fascinating. But, are there real applications? We're not concerned with that. That's not interesting. There's one compute problem that seems to be problematic right now. And Chris talks about this, other quantum people do too. There's not really much of a need for any ultra high throughput computing, interestingly. If you go to why does EC2 exist? Okay. Why does Dell sell computers? What are they doing? Most of the time, these aren't computers that are running CPU workload at 100%. A lot of EC2 is just dormant silicon. The only computers that are humming at 100% capacity are AI computers. Those computers aren't going to be replaced anytime soon, certainly not by quantum, due to bandwidth constraints. And eventually we may get solutions for that. I predict we'd get solutions for that before quantum becomes relevant. But right now there is a bottleneck of compute for that. Now look, I don't know every enterprise use case of compute, but a lot of it has to do with storage and sending storage to the right place in compute. So RAM, the locality of the data versus the processor. Certainly there's data problem. There's a lot of data density. There is some compute problems at, say a Google or something like that. But in general, I don't get the sense that we're bandwidth limited by compute. I get the sense that we're limited by the fabrics that exist. That's why Mellanox was an important deal for NVIDIA. Training a neural network is very data intensive. It's also compute intensive, but it's very data intensive. And you do need to update lots of things yeah, moving the data is costly. There's a really wonderful, if you want to, RGC is really down 50%, huh? Wow. This is the rug. This is the rug pull. Wish there was a great way to short that. But here's a really thing to learn. Yeah, transmitting information with light's very hard. We'll see. Numbers. These are the numbers you should know. Yeah, I don't know about light matter. We'll see. These are Jeff Dean's numbers you should know. So, you know, Jeff Dean's kind of the CTO of Google. You know, these are pretty important. You know, these are 2012 numbers, by the way. But they're mostly the same, I think. Circle back up to 15% there. Unbelievable momentum. So anyway, these numbers are really important. I would challenge you to do these numbers for quantum so you can get a sense for, you know, what they look like. You know, cycles are clock speed dependent, obviously. Yeah, Regis, that sounds right. Do you know what accessing the RAM in quantum is like? Remember, a cycle in most processors is a billionth of a second, right? It's not really quantum RAM yet. I'm sure there will be someday, but you still have to sort of get large data to work with this, which, you know, we certainly, I mean, you wouldn't want to do quantum AI. Like what you want, the reason you'd want a quantum computer, so let's just take a step back. Why would you want this, right? The only reason you would want to do anything on a quantum computer is if you're going, because silicon's very fast. I mean, there really is no need to replace silicon. The only reason you'd want to replace silicon is if you get the complexity speed up from a exponential to a polynomial. If you get that speed up, you can get, you know, you can go through the trouble of going to a quantum computer. It doesn't make sense otherwise, because you just use silicon. You're not going to go faster, right? So if you have this exponential problem, let me make this clear. You know, so if you have a problem that you need this speed up, this algorithmic speed up, if you want to, I think the reason so many people are confused about this are not many people learn these things. Here's a classic called CLRS. This is the classic book. You can read this. And Rivest of RSA fame is here. Rivest is one of the authors. He still teaches at MIT. So read this book. It's only 1,300 pages. It said that in an early edition, Bill Gates had a page at the end that said, in the version 1 of this book, allegedly, Bill Gates had a version of this where Bill Gates on the last page says, if you've made it this far, come get a job at Microsoft. You know, not many people care about this. So it's CLRS for the names of the authors. Not many people care this much. Right? People care about the story. People care about the stock price. People care about the quarterly earnings. Well, why not go to the thing that drives those things, right? The quarterly earnings don't come out of nowhere. The stock price doesn't come out of nowhere. Eventually, it goes to the underlying pieces of what's happening. And if you understand those, well, you don't have to worry about anything else. You know, that's what I like to do, and that's what's made me a successful investor. As much as the last few months have been frustrating over the long period of time, I have been a very successful investor at the highest levels, dealing with huge amounts of money. So why would you want to use a quantum computer? It becomes exceptionally clear. The only reason you'd want to do it is if there is a problem where you can actually move complexity. If you have to stay in the same complexity regime, why would you go to quantum? It's not going to help you. It's just a much more complex contraption that just can't get you there. So there's only two places, Shor's and Grover's. And Grover's doesn't get you a complexity class change. It gets you this little O square root of n change, which, depending on who you are, may be small, may be big. But it turns out that Grover's is actually extremely hard to actually implement and see this. It's more of a theoretical result, to be honest. In practice, it's often quite hard to actually get this. And of course, because quantum's still rather theoretical, we don't know what this is going to look like, to be honest. But Shor's we feel really confident in. Shor's I really like. You know, Shor's is magic. You know, Shor's truly is magic. And I have no doubt that at some point we will get a new algorithm. For now, we basically have two. I have no doubt that we will exploit the quantum effects for something else. The question is when? Can you wait that long? Will it be commercially relevant? And is it going to be your stock that's the one that's going to win? And I think it's fairly clear that, you know, whether it's Rigetti or Quantum Computing Inc. or D-Wave or maybe even IonQ, probably admittedly has a little bit better chance than these other guys, you know, are you going to be the one that wins? And I think the answer is no for all of them. But the question is, what will this mystery algorithm do? And the biggest question is, what are the problems that we're trying to solve, right? What are the problems that require such high compute we need to get out of the silicon regime? There just aren't that many. These processors are really good. You know, there aren't that many heavy compute problems. You have Crisis, that's a joke, of course. But, you know, you have things like math, simulations. There really aren't too many places where you need massive amounts of compute every day. If you went to a researcher at Harvard and said, yeah, the Knuth books are coming, don't worry. He's slowly writing all of them. If you went to any researcher in any discipline, okay, at Harvard or MIT or whatever, I had a great chemist who passed away. I had two great chemists who passed away, sadly. But I had a great quantum physicist, actually, chemist named 𝗦𝗩𝗡𝗦. He worked at Vertex, the esteemed drug company. He was their early employee. Not an early employee, but he was an employee when the market cap was about 50x below what it is today. And he was a fantastic, yeah, David, we're talking about that exactly right now. So he was a fantastic computational chemist. We hired him. I asked him, how many computers do you want? And at the time, cloud was barely getting started. We brought in the people from Cray. Cray makes supercomputers, or used to at least. And in supercomputers, the biggest thing you're worried about is message passing. So we just wire up a bunch of regular computers, basically, and have some message passing software. He said, Martin, I don't need any of that. So what are you talking about? We're here to make new molecules, right? We're going to simulate, you know, and I had some targets in mind. I had some enzymes. I had some different proteins I wanted to mess around with. And he was going to be doing the messing around. And he said, I don't need that. I just need one really good desktop, maybe something that costs $2,000 or $3,000. And here I'm ready to write a check for $2 million. And I'm just telling a story because quantum gets me animated. You know, quantum is fun to talk about. So he said, I don't need all that $3,000 computer. My jaw dropped because I said, you know, this is one of the most computationally heavy processes I know. You know, the first product DL software had was called drug-like. And we were developing ways to do distributed drug discovery with huge amounts of computers. So this is a space I know pretty well. In fact, I call the guy who invented the most used open source software for drug discovery, ligand docking, a friend, Oleg, who invented Autodoc, or Vina. And, you know, we all want a quantum computer to work, you know, but it's just not going to happen. So in any event, you know, I think, you know, this guy, David, stole my thunder. But the point is, you know, for every compute heavy problem, we sort of have solutions for them. You know, there's a couple of software packages in the simulation world that are really not trivial, especially simulating physics. This is a space that's really like perfect for quantum computing and really hard for normal computers. And if you want to try them out, you should try them out. You know, there's a bunch of programs like GROMACS. I think you can pip install GROMACS, and you could run a bunch of many-body physics problems and say, you know what, simulate that for 10 nanoseconds. Then try to simulate it for, you know, just keep going up in order of magnitude, and you will get to a point where you can't solve it anymore. But there's programs like this one I just put it on my GitHub. I just put this thing on my GitHub, discrete log problem for elliptic curve programs that I'm aware of. To my knowledge, this is my program, the fastest elliptic curve solver there is. I'm working on a 2x, 3x speed up, but you can see I'm doing 500 million keys a second, which is quite a lot faster. But if I keep adding a 0, what happens? If I keep adding a 0, it gets slower and slower. Why? Well, that's exponential. Problem is an exponential problem. I eventually just can't. This will run between now and the heat death of the universe. So I need a way to get a polynomial time algorithm. Nobody's found a polynomial time algorithm for this problem. It would be bigger than a Turing Award or a Nobel Prize. It would be most important, especially if it generalized to something else. It'd be the most important discovery in humanity. Does P equal NP is one of the most important questions humans can simply ask. And this is something a lot of people don't know much about. This is just not that interesting to most people. And again, if I wanted to add yet another 0, I'm going to basically, the input size will scale exactly with the compute time. Or the compute time will scale exactly with the input size. So I think that quantum does pose this really amazing question and answer, but you have to make sure that the answer it's posing is the answer to the question not that you want, but the one that is actually being asked. And I think that's sort of the dilemma with quantum. Many, many people have wanted quantum to be the answer to many different questions. But the reality is it's the answer to a very small question. Bitcoin has no RSA in it, but regardless, it has an RSA-like problem called discrete log over finite fields, prime finite fields. And this is, you can surefy that problem because it's so close to RSA that you can convert it in essence.